Welcome to the AlphaWarrior Show. We're excited to share diverse perspectives and expert insights with you. Please note that the views and information expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the AlphaWarrior Show, its management, or our partners. Each of our affiliates and sponsors and partnerships is a separate entity, and their opinions are their own. Today's content is provided for information and educational purposes and should not be taken as specific advice, whether it be financial, medical, or legal. While we strive to present accurate and useful information, we cannot guarantee its completeness or relevance to your specific situation. We provide all information as is and encourage you to consult with a professional advisor to address your specific individual needs. Your use of any information from this broadcast is entirely at your own risk. By listening further, you agree to identify and protect the AlphaWarrior Show and its associates from any claims or damages arising from your use of this broadcast content. Changes to this disclaimer may be made at any time and will be done effectively immediately upon posting or broadcasting. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you find the episode both informative and thought-provoking. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
Holy smokes, what a week already. And it's just the beginning. You guys, this is the AlphaWarrior Show. I am your host, Alpha. An amazing guest that I got with me tonight. You guys are definitely going to recognize him. Joshua Reed, on X at Real Joshua Reed, or the website redpills.tv. We just came from doing his show. and now we're on this show. So some of you that were there and now are over here, because that's just the way this crazy world works. And after we're done with this show, I'll make sure to link the show we did before this, so you guys can kind of get both of the information, because I'm sure there's things we'll touch on here that we didn't touch on there, and we'll, etc. You guys get it. But here's the point. The last time that I had Josh on here, he told us something in the Middle East is going to pop off with Israel and Iran and them between October 1st and October 3rd. And lo and behold, it happened. Like, here we are. So a lot of things going on. We got the pork strikes. People are worried about World War III. There's just a lot, and we're going to cover it. But before we do, let me get to two amazing sponsors. And when we come back, we're content free. This is going to be a fast moving episode, you guys. This one's going to be done within the hour, but there's going to be a lot of information you take away. So do me a solid while the commercials are running. Go down, hit that share button, and share it on your social media. Tag some people. Let's build this audience, and I'll be back in just a moment.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
You ask and we listen. We're finally bringing the most requested offer ever. Get the queen-size premium MyPillow, now only $19.98. MyPillow is made with patented adjustable fill. It adjusts to your exact individual needs regardless of your sleep position. It helps keep your neck aligned and holds its shape all night long so you get the best sleep of your life. But that's not all. Get our 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets only $25. Our brand new mattress topper as low as $69.98. Get our famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25 and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products, including the premium queen-size MyPillow, only $19.98. That's the lowest price ever. Don't delay, order today. From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
And if you didn't know, and actually I got a new ad I'll be running for Michael there at MyPillow. He's got even cheaper prices because another box store tried to cancel the man, and you guys are going to reap the benefit from that. So make sure you go support these people that support this show. Links are all down in the description below. So now, you guys, without further ado, let me bring on Josh, redpills.tv. Bro, we were just together a few minutes ago.
I know, man. Good to see you again.
Likewise. So let's just fire off, man. Actually, let's do this. Kind of recap for us, what you covered at the beginning, end of your show, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
Okay, so there's a lot.
Right.
We'll start with today. So obviously, Iran did a retaliatory strike onto Israel today. They had precision strikes. I want people to understand these were precision strikes. They notified the United States of America and Russia prior to these strikes, giving them notification so that they could reduce as much civilian casualties as possible. They hit the headquarters of the Mossad. They hit 3 different air bases in an oil rig on those air bases. They hit the runways as well as various different hangars that were housing over 20 F-35s. It was a bad hit for Israel. Now, with Israel, they played off like the Iron Dome engaged 85% of them. That's all nonsense. That's bullshit, guys. That's not true. And so this comes about because of Nasrallah's death, the IGRC commander that was killed along with Nasrallah. Hezbollah has been completely eliminated. Israel, I'll give them credit, they ran one of the most lethal military operations in known history against Hezbollah. This started with a pager attack a few weeks ago. For those who didn't catch my episodes on that, you should go watch it because it had nothing to do with explosives inside pagers in a 15-year operation. That was just to make sure that people around the world don't get scared. The fact that they can target your phone with a thermal runaway through 5G antennas They had to modify 5G antennas and put them in place in order to do this operation, but distinct directed energy weapons focused on your phone, causing thermal runaway and your phones to explode. The pagers was not meant, they didn't really care if it killed anybody or not. It was meant to identify the head leaders of Hezbollah. Because if you imagine, if your line of communication goes dead, if you can no longer communicate, what do? You start calling home, you start getting scared, you start wondering what's going on. And that's exactly what Hezbollah did. And Israel, the Mossad, was waiting and ready. That's the reason why they hit the Mossad headquarters today, because it was a precision operation by Mossad. They followed all of the leaders back. They identified their locations, and then they started a bombing campaign within Lebanon and eliminated the head of the snake of Hezbollah, which was devastating to Iran, devastating to a lot of the various different Muslim groups, terrorist organizations within the Middle East. And this was retaliation for that. The question is Israel going to respond? Is the United States going to help them respond? If so, we're going to see a greater conflict emerge from this. But there's also other aspects to be worried about, because Egypt and Turkey have also came to the global stage and have called for Israel to stop their incursion into Lebanon, a sovereign nation. They are forming what's known as the Islamic Alliance. This comes about over events that have happened over the last month in Turkey and in Egypt, various different alliance partnerships being created. If people didn't know, there was 3 Navy sailors that were supposedly kidnapped in Turkey a few weeks ago. As I claimed, I believe I was on your show and I said this, that was nothing more than a psyop that produced a color revolution in Turkey, because the next day Turkey announced that they would be joining the BRICS alliance, which is basically a no-no for any NATO nation. Turkey is on their way out of NATO, which is going to be a massive hit for the European nations, because Turkey holds one of the largest armies in NATO besides the United States of America. Egypt, the largest military in the Middle East and Northern Africa, is a NATO ally, and they will go about and leave NATO as well during this. So Erdogan and Al-Sisi produce what's known as the Islamic Alliance. And I actually have the post right here, and I'm just going to read the title for you. Erdogan calls for UN to recommend use of force if Israel is not stopped. He urged the UN General Assembly to recommend the use of force against Israel if the UN Security Council fails to halt its attacks on Gaza and Lebanon. Citing the 1955 Uniting for Peace resolution, Erdogan emphasized the need for swift action and called on Muslim countries to take economic, diplomatic, and political steps to pressure Israel into accepting a ceasefire. Just yesterday, 57 Arab nations came together calling for a ceasefire of Israel and intervention if they did not stop. Iran's retaliatory strikes came at exactly the right moment after this came about. Now, Israel would be decimated if they went to straight war with Iran. Iran would annihilate Israel. All the other Arab nations in that area would annihilate Israel. It's only because the United States of America that the bully can go punch somebody in the nose and run away. The United States would be a 48-hour war with Iran. So if the United States went to war with Iran, it'd be a 48-hour war, just like the first Gulf War with Iraq. It would be over and done with. But then it would go on for 20 fucking years after that fact, because we know how that violent extremism would rise up from that point in time. There are big repercussions if the United States does get involved, and that heads home very quickly in the sense of Hezbollah Unit 910 that has came over the border. Tom Benjamin has talked about this, testified in front of Congress 2003, September and October, where he talked about how he worked for the Texas Customs and Border Patrol as an intelligence officer, and they witnessed thousands of members of Hezbollah Unit 910 coming over the border and being put over into U.S. cities all throughout our country. They are sleeper cells. They are here. They are waiting. And so we are in a very dire time in the sense of global destabilization. And now the timing of this couldn't be any more interesting, because we're about 36 days away from the general election here in the United States of America, where it looks like Donald Trump is going to win overwhelmingly. And we know that the international global cartel, if you want to call them that, or order, they will not let Donald Trump become president of the United States. And so that's about everything we covered on my show in about 3.5 minutes.
It is. But you also made me remember something. Do you remember, I want to say it was last year. It might have been before that, because you know how fast the clock's been turning on us.
Yeah.
Remember they were taking pictures of a bunch of the guys that were coming across the border. And there was one particular gentleman, and I want to say even you, I think, were able to narrow this guy down, and he had made the comment on camera, and he said, "You guys," and correct me if I get this quote wrong, because like I said, it's been a while, but he says, "You guys will know who I am, or you
Yep.
will figure out who I am." Do you remember that conversation?
I do. I remember the guy. I remember the video I posted online of me actually breaking it all down for
Mhm.
people. Let me see if I can actually find it because it was a media. I should have it on my X account. Actually, you know what I do? Where I think I do have it? I think I have it on my TikTok.
Well, you search for it. I'll let everybody know why I want to bring this up and why you reminded me, because that just hits different now, especially
Mhm.
when we're talking about these different units that are now on United States grounds, our land, that are waiting to get their orders. They're actually not waiting to get their orders. They have their orders. They're waiting to get the green light to follow through their orders. And I think that was a very important part of the conversation that we had on your show, Josh, where we're explaining to people that, yeah, Iran knows the power of the US military. Regardless, our military has been hurt, but it's still a very powerful military. So my concern, which I had expressed to you and your audience over there, was, if we get hit on the home front, we could have troops overseas in battle, but when they find out mom and dad are under attack, wife and kids are under attack, you want to talk about destroying morale. Like one of the, and I mean, you've been overseas as well, Josh. One of the things that allows us to be so efficient is we've never had to worry about home.
Yeah.
Like we know they're completely safe. What does that look like, man? So I see you found it. Let me bring it up on the screen. And
It's 2 minutes, but it's worth the watch.
it is.
All right, guys, I came across this video and I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention because immediately when I saw this guy, I knew exactly who this was. Check this out.
By the way, if you are smart enough, you would know who I am. But you are really not smart enough to know who I am. But soon you're gonna know who I am. You're gonna know who I am. Very easy.
Wow, very easy. The entitlement.
No, believe me, I'm much better than that.
Okay, from this guy's ego, you could tell that he most likely thinks that you should know who he is. Well, who is he? Right when I saw this, I knew exactly who this man was. I had to do a little bit of searching, but I think I'm correct. Now, I'm working with a few people who have contacts on the ground who took this video and took still photos. And so they're going to get those over to me and we're going to try to verify. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave you with this of who this potentially could be. If you remember back in 2011, there was a drone strike in Yemen. The U.S. government, ordered by President Barack Obama, killed 2 terrorists in Yemen. One of them being Anwar al-Awlaki. Anwar was born and educated in the United States of America. He became an imam, moved to the Middle East and Yemen. He's traveled through the Soviet Union as well as Afghanistan. He has associations with the Mujahideen, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda. He has a vengeance out for the United States of America. His son and his daughter were both killed by U.S. raids and drone strikes. He was directly responsible for the Fort Hood shooter, as well as the Christmas Day underwear bomber and many other different types of terrorist types of events in the United States of America. The United States said that he died in 2011 in a drone strike in Yemen. I believe that is false. That he is the man who crossed over the border, clean shaven, beard trimmed, and he's ready to bring some terror to the United States. Buckle up, people. I mean,
and now
look
we're
at that. Yeah, and now we're here, right? But look at that. Clean shaven, beardy, drone. Look, the border. He is the man who crossed. It's fucking him, dude.
I'm there with you. I was there with you when you posted it. I'm there with you now. And so this is the concern I have, man. And for those that didn't see it, earlier today, I posted the Deep State's brutal blueprint to dismantle America, which perfectly aligns with, Josh, you call it the firestorm.
Yep. And
I think this is any day now, if not already happening. This is what my concern is. We're, I mean, let's just call it what it is. Is this an Israel-Iran war, or is this tit for tat? How do you see that first part?
So right now with Israel and Iran, it's tit for tat. I think they both understand the consequences globally of what happens next, especially Iran. So there's a few things to understand about Iran. If this was maybe a decade ago and Iran had this level of funding and this was under Obama, it would be a completely different story. Iran would be waging full-out war because the United States at that time was pretty weakened, but had a strong presence in the Middle East. But they knew their troop movements. They understood U.S. military on the ground during that time. But right now, what we're seeing is Iran's largest ally is Russia. So if you remember a few weeks ago, they were saying that Iran was sending ballistic missiles to Russia. This was absolute nonsense and just more rhetoric and bullshit nonsense being spread by Western intelligence. The reason that is nonsense is because Russia's been developing ballistic missile technology for the last 50 years. Iran's been doing it for 10. But Shogun, this is Russia's head guy in intelligence in the Department of Defense, visited Iran just last week. And right after a few events happened, he was in Iran and he helped Iran bring in a missile defense shield. So Iran was actually taking a defensive posture against retaliatory strikes from Israel. And this was, a few months ago. Just 2 days ago, another Russian ambassador went to Iran right before this whole strike. So we have to understand that Iran is a proxy for Russia. That's the key to important to understand, is that Iran is not going to act unless Russia tells them to. The only reason that they acted today was because in these Muslim cultures, it's an eye for an eye. You have to save face for what just happened, what Israel just did. And so they notified Russia, they notified the United States, said, hey, we're going to hit these targets. This is where we're going to hit, minimize civilian casualties. We don't want that to happen. It's just Israel we want. Boom. That's what they did. It's over and done with. If the next part happens where Israel retaliates, you will see another strike from Iran into Israel. If the U.S. gets involved in this, this is where everything else begins to escalate. And it's my thoughts that the U.S. is going to get involved in retaliatory strikes. Joe Biden actually just said this a few hours ago, saying that we will help Israel with retaliatory strikes and striking against Iran. If that happens, what you're going to see is most likely the activation of Hezbollah Unit 910 here in the United States of America. What does that look like? Well, there's a catalyst that actually occurs before that. So Alpha did lay this out for anybody out there. If you are on Alpha's X page, go the Deep State's Brutal Blueprint for Dismantling America. Awesome post. Pay attention to it. Then what you should do is go to my X account and find out my post on prepping, what you need to do, because that's critically important as well, because these things go hand in hand. But with his post, it's an extrapolated viewpoint of what I've been talking about since November of 2020 called the Firestorm. How do you take down the United States of America through infiltration within is exactly what we've been seeing. November 2020, I said this was going to happen in 2024. I said that everything that we're fucking seeing right now, I said is going to happen. But there's other parts that we said were going to happen. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But I want people to realize this. The catalyst event is why these wars are waging. Energy. It's all about the control of resources, natural resources, and energy. Okay? If a greater war breaks out within the Middle East, the United States will be fucked. I want people to understand. Russia knows this. Okay? So you got to look back to the BRICS nations and what they've done over the last 4 years with the de-dollarization. Yeah, it hasn't completely faltered the United States dollar, but it's hurt it in a significant way because we had inflationary rise that was occurring at the same time. And they knew the incompetency of the deep state. What they were going to do is try to kill the dollar to usher in the CBDC. And so they took advantage of that through the BRICS nations by selling off all their dollar assets back onto the market, all their bonds back onto the market, and then causing a sinkhole in Ukraine with US dollars. So by doing this, what they did is they economically hurt the United States of America and put us in a very precarious situation, a situation where gas prices rose so high that Joe Biden had to dump out the Strategic Petroleum Reserve back into the United States to bring those prices down during 2021 and 2022. But he also sold a mass majority of that off to China, which they gladly bought. Our Strategic Petroleum Reserve stands at about 16% or 16 days worth of oil and fuel right now, which means that if all the oil reserves around the world were shut off the U.S. utilization, we were just doing our natural production, we'd have 16 days left to fuel our country, our economy, and our military. This is the war of attrition, people, what we're looking at here. So that is a key component. Why is this all breaking out in the Middle East? Why is Russia controlling Iran? Iran is one of the top gas and oil producers in the Middle East that supplies China and Russia. You don't think that they're going to allow the United States to just bomb the shit out of Iran? That's not going to happen. There will be a greater war that occurs within Eastern Europe and the Asia Peninsula before that ever occurs. So the United States has to be very strategic here on how they actually go about this engagement operation with Israel and Iran. On the other side of the house is once we begin to have that inflow of economic collapse that occurs because of the skyrocketing energy prices. Skyrocketing energy prices means that the diesel ships that are traveling across the ocean to bring food and supplies into the United States, going across, everything in the sense of railroads, we got truckers, we have the longshore freaking strike going on right now. All of that is going to have a massive effect on the U.S. economy, which means that stock up now, get your supplies, make sure you have 3 to 6 months of food for every member of your house stocked away, people. Okay. So why do I say that? Because if this does happen, what we think is going to happen, one of 3 different scenarios that'll happen in the next 36 days, then the United States will fall into an economic crisis before the whole global war actually breaks out. They need that economic crisis. Secondly, you will see some type of mass terrorist event, false flag event happen in the United States of America that will be blamed on Iran. I'm assuming that this is going to be another assassination attempt on Donald Trump or an actual assassination attempt. The reason I say that is that the last assassination dude, he didn't make any sense whatsoever. But then the ties back to Iran, the ties back to Ukraine, Azov, CIA. So I started thinking about this and I said, what if we had it all wrong? What if after the first attempt, they already had a plan B in place, and the plan B was to beef up Donald Trump's security, to make sure he had Secret Service there so he feels safe, so he continues doing his rallies. And then what you have is a Hezbollah Unit 910 operation that goes into one of his rallies. You have another Las Vegas-style massacre with the potential to even take out Donald Trump and a few Secret Service agents, which gives them the precedence to go into Iran, blame it on Iran, go into Iran and begin a larger war campaign, which also would collapse the economy at the same time. You have Donald Trump either injured, dead, or not even injured or dead, but you have massive amounts of people. They cancel the election from that point in time. And now they can continue with their globalist agenda and into their reset. But also, what would they do? They would control information and data flow. They use the Defense Production Act because of the national crisis to take over X.com, to take over Rumble, to do all this, to silence all their dissenters. The United States of America would be like post 9/11. Everybody would be hanging an American flag. Let's go kill Israel. This is the type of situation and scenario they want. So this is a highly likely scenario that we could see playing out. And today marked the actual beginning of that. That's why I was putting all over X today. This is just the beginning.
For those that say, well, no, you just had a dude on camera that Josh was able to ID as this terrorist that says, you're going to know me. It wasn't, hey, we will see. Body language and statements. It's what I did for my career. That was a statement of someone who already has a plan and says, this is going to, in other words, this is going to create so much havoc or pain or destruction. You're going to know who I am. And he's not the only one that came across. And so I want people to realize like how serious we are to the brink of like just straight chaos, which, that's what they like, order out of chaos. Now imagine, and we talked about this on your show too, the 3 scenarios, either Kamala wins or Trump wins, or we don't have a damn election. And in the one scenario where, Kamala is able to do the steal, and then like you said, all of a sudden we find ourselves in 2020 again, like, well how? No, like we were here, we were prepared. Everybody talked about this. Like, how could it? We'll be so dumbfounded by that, including people that are pissed off, people that are hurt. The whole gambit of emotions. But then all of a sudden, if they're able to weaponize one of these units to do the unthinkable with Trump, that really, I have never considered that scenario where Kamala steals it. We're pissed and we say, hey, it's time to do something about the steal. But then the guy that it got stolen from is out of the equation because they got away with it. I mean, what then? Like, what does that look like? Now add everything else that's going on, small pockets of chaos in the country. And then you said something, and I'll be all over the place, but you can definitely keep up with it. If we're down to 16 days worth of oil, and all of a sudden a nuclear, or not a nuclear conflict, but just a large scale war unfolds, then does it become the country's choice? Do we send our military to participate in this conflict, or do we try to stay afloat here at home? And then if we do send our troops over there, are we only giving them enough supplies for a few days, and then all of a sudden we have the world's most expensive paperweights spread out through the Middle East, which they can then take over like they did our equipment in Afghanistan, because the troops aren't just going to stay there and protect something they can't fuel.
So you got to look at the broader scale. So let's assume, and this is very hypothetical, people, and this comes from a military strategy point of view. By the way, the Germans lost because of the war of attrition. I want people to understand that they were spread too far out, that their resources couldn't reach their troops in their prisoner camps, and the Allies knew this and bombed all the railways into there. Okay? This is how wars are ran, through wars of attrition, and Russia has been playing us like fools for the last 3 years. So I want people to understand this. Let's assume that this war does escalate. We have some type of event here that draws us into the war, the Singular Lusitania, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, whatever it might be, something that pulls us into the war. And we begin putting a war effort out there. What you would see, Alpha, is the inactive ready reserve would be immediately called up. That's you, me, everybody else who served, veterans, come back in. It's time to go. Individual augmentation, if you were Navy, you're going to go to Army boot camp for 6 weeks and you're going to be deployed. Gone. Okay. Then you're going to have the draft implemented. And yes, women will be included into that at some point in time. Don't worry. They can pass bills real fast in Congress when they need to. Also, on the sense of the Iranian war effort, let's just assume that Kamala wins on the next day. Something happens, a terrorist attack, big distraction. We go to war with Iran the next day. How many Republican congressmen today were calling for the death and destruction of Iran? Almost every single one of them that are on AIPAC's payroll. So understand, they're not going to give a shit about the lost election when Iran is on the table, because they get give a blowjob to big old granddaddy Israel.
Tell me if this is not the statement we're going to hear, Josh. Now's not the time for division, but unity.
That's it. Enjoy. But this is what would happen. So if there's an oil crisis, countries like Saudi Arabia, they would be giving up their oil supply. See, Iran is too much of a hotbed, because China and Russia get a lot of their oil. And Russia is oil independent, but China and Russia get a lot of their stuff from Iran. But it would be for the United States is to go into one of these countries and take their resources as fast as possible. This would be Iraqi oil fields. This would be UAE, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. This would be Iran. And so the whole focus on military efforts would be focused on those regions specifically first, to basically get those resources before a larger progressional war comes about. But here's the key. That's exactly what China wants. The reason I say that is because if you have a limited war effort and you have limited resources in a war that is being waged globally, then Taiwan are sitting ducks and China can just walk in. China, by the way, China would have that war over and done with less than 12 hours. I don't think people realize that. The only problem is, and I'll say this because I'm not under NDA for this, is the U.S. has a military base there. and they have nukes at the facility. Okay? That's the only reason China has not gone in yet. And once they realize that, once China knows that that's no longer a threat, they will go in, and they will have it done within 12 hours because they've already infiltrated the Taiwanese government. Okay? So getting back into this, in the hypothetical scenario, it will be a war of resources. It'll be a game of Risk. If you've ever played the game, in the Middle East would be the hotbed target for the United States of America, and it would be blanket bombs all over the place, taking out governments. They don't even care because it's all about survival at that point. But at that same time that war is waging on, you're going to have uprisings here in the United States. You're going to have riots. You're going to have protests, and you're going to have violence from all the illegal immigrants, the murderers, the rapists, the gang members, the Chinese military-aged men, the Hezbollah Unit 910. All of that is planned and coordinated. Like Alpha was saying, Alawaki, that guy wasn't someone who's like, I might do something. He came here with a mission. I guarantee you he is radio silent. He has no comms back and forth. They know the precise date and time of when they are going to hit. And listen, guys, this is an incredibly fueled situation, because we got to remember what the globalists lost in 2016. They lost a 16-year plan. The 16-year plan, 8 years of Barack Obama, 8 years of Hillary Clinton. The first 2 years of Hillary Clinton were a nuclear war with Russia that escalates into a pandemic for the next 2 years, and then reorganization into a global world order over the next 4 years. That was the plan with Hillary Clinton. They missed that opportunity. So now they skipped. They have Joe Biden. Joe Biden had to go in there as a puppet, with Obama fixing and undoing what Trump had done. And now the 16-year plan will continue from this point forward. So you can understand nuclear war, pandemic, global economic collapse, formation of the global order by 2030. This is their plan.
I'm going to bring this up on the screen, Josh, just to fire it through real quick, just so people can see and get an idea of what this looks like. And we'll go through it real fast. And this is what Josh was referring to that I put on my X earlier, the deep state's brutal blueprint to dismantle America. So number one, destroying infrastructure, target supply chains, collapse our roads, our bridges, our railways to bring America to a grinding halt. We've seen that over the last couple of years already. Number two, seizing control of ports, choking off vital supplies, controlling what comes in and out, strangle the lifeline of our economy and our food. We're seeing right now on the East Coast all the way to Texas, the strike with the ports, with the longshoremen. Number three, sabotaging logistics, starvation as a weapon, scarcity engineered to break our will. To me, the toilet paper gate was a dry run for this one to see how we're reacting to get the algorithms for it. Four, importing illegal criminals, a flood of crime, overwhelming law enforcement, and collapsing local governance. We've just talked about that one guy as part of the terrorist that's coming in, which is the next one, smuggling terror cells, waiting to activate pockets of attacks, manufactured chaos, terror on our own soil, neighbors turning against neighbors. And number six, the planned pandemic 2.0 in October. Fear is the ultimate weapon. Panic paralyzes action. A repeat performance to push us deeper into submission. 7, destroying the U.S. dollar. I mean, we've kind of talked about that a couple times with you on the show. And then BRICS, everybody abandoning us when the chaos goes on, which is accelerates the collapse of our economy and our dollar here. 8, engineering World War III, Ukraine, Israel, endless conflict to siphon our resources, distract and divide. And there's so much more, and we kind of touched on these things. So one word I said, it was for control. Now, here's the kicker on all this. This is where everybody in the audience, you got to kind of put yourself into this position. Imagine you're starving, your kid or your wife or your husband's sick, or being terrorized all over the country, where safety and sustenance are privileges. They're controlled by the powerful. And this is where the government can now turn around and do this. And I think this has always been part of their plan on us. Martial law gets declared, freedom replaced by military boots on the streets. And remember, people say there's no way. People would be begging for government intervention. When you're starving and your family's sick and people are dying, this is when people beg for government intervention. And government always has the answer because they created the problem. Elections are canceled or postponed. War is a new economy. Listen, if you can't feed your family, and all of a sudden there's World War III and everybody thinks, well, I'll be against it. all of a sudden, if we can, because and you talked about this earlier, Josh, and I forget which military act it is, where they can take over companies to help facilitate, whatever they need to create or build. If all of a sudden these car companies start being turned into manufacturing companies for tanks or ammo or all this, and you can have a job where now you can feed your family, guess what? You're going to be pro-military really quick, because you're not going to care about what the cause is or who's fighting who. You just know it's giving you a check to where you're not the one starving and dying anymore. Here's the one that I know people want to say, no,
Yeah.
but the force bioweapon into the arm. We talked about this on Josh's show. Erickson's talked about it on X, so shout out to Erickson on this too. But for the last couple months, FEMA and the sports arenas have been collaborating. Now, why have they been collaborating? What do they know that we don't know? Josh, you talked about some people that have been planning mass casualty things. You want to touch on that real quick before I continue?
Yeah. So last year, the Game Tech Politics on X joined me on my show, and we discussed some audio that was recorded of a DHS official talking to him about mass casualty events that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security have been running throughout the United States in every major city. And I said, well, Game, you understand that this is a staging event. They're running these mass casualty events as staging events to get all the resources and supplies into these cities prior to the events actually happening. That's how FEMA operates. September 10th in 2001, they were in Central Park in New York City. I wonder what they were doing there. But they are preparing for mass casualty events. Then just the other day, we have the 28th Amendment being discussed in Congress, in the sense if 100 members of Congress died, how do you replace them under Coop and Cog? And they talked about mass casualty events in the United States and what do in continuity of government planning and all this stuff. They are absolutely planning for a mass casualty event. Now, Alpha, there's one thing that I'd said this before in the sense of a mass casualty event, and I hate talking about this one because it hits hard to home for a lot of people. And as cockamamie as it sounds, it starts to come into the realm of possibility. Take those same terrorists that we just talked about, right, in the United States. Let's say that they get activated. Let's say they do exactly what we talked about. They start doing some mass shootings to pull first responder resources away to one centralized area. They ambush them over there, and then they start taking over National Guard armories, and police stations. Once at the police stations, let's just assume that this is 3 o'clock in the morning and everybody's sleeping in that city. They take over the police station. Now they have access to the evidence lockers. They go in there and they grab the tons upon tons of fentanyl that has came over the U.S. border. They march on down to the water treatment facility in every major city, and they put it into the water, and they hit flush and let it get distributed. So when people wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, the first thing they do is they jump in the shower, they splash water in their face, or they brush their teeth, and you're going to have a mass casualty incident.
And one of the things that I added to that is, outside of the ones that maybe have combat experience, and this is important enough to repeat, one of the biggest differences between our law enforcement here in the United States and law enforcement in a lot of other countries is they also have to be trained for guerrilla war tactics, terrorist tactics, because they actually deal with that in a lot of these other countries, even large countries. Yep. Our law enforcement never really has. Our law enforcement's tactics has always been for gangs, outlaw motorcycle gangs, maybe some, cartel here and there, but they don't think in the perspective of actual combat, which means, like you said, they can get sucked into this small shooting that turns into a large shooting that's an ambush, or all of a sudden they get sucked into these explosives. And you remember in Texas, we had some hotels that had some explosives or some explosions that took place that we never truly got any explanation of what really happened. But what did we see? First responders and everybody just flying to there, because that's what we do in America as first responders.
Well, you remember the mall in Florida with the alien that was on the loose in the mall in Florida, right? And you had every single police officer on call there. And I said, this is nothing more than a staged event to see how fast first responders can get to one centralized area. And then do you remember just a month ago, we had Lackland Air Force Base. The gate guards came under fire by 2 Venezuelan gang members outside of the base. Guys, buckle up. Arm yourself to the fucking teeth.
And that's exactly what I want people to understand is I know a lot of people think things are under control. And if that's the case, great. But you always have to plan for the worst case scenario and then hope for the best case scenario. You always, I said it earlier today in the space, it's better to have it, not need it, than need it and not have it. And unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. And if our law enforcement gets crippled, there goes your local defense system. And if our military is overseas and doing something else, then who's left? What type of coordination is left if they've taken over our communications? And here's the thing. A lot of people are patriots, but all of a sudden, if their family's starving and sick, they're not going to volunteer to go and fight. They got to take care of what's going on at their home. So like I know some people love 107, some people don't, but he said something that I think is we're at the precipice of it. And it's that near-death experience. I truly feel like we're there, Josh. And, the point I'm making here with the forced jabs is if you have this collaboration between FEMA and these sports agencies, and these people have been planning these mass casualty events like Josh explained, what are you going to say if you have no food, no water, no medicine for your hungry, starving, and sick family? And they say, well, the only way you get into the stadium is you got to take this. Wait, that's the only way you get in here because we got to protect everybody from this other pandemic that's going on. You know how many people, if people were taking it to protect their jobs, Josh, you know how many people are going to take that to feed their family?
Everybody. Well, mostly everybody.
Most people would.
Not only that is, imagine what happens if you got to remember what they want truly is they want people sick, poor, hungry, homeless, and begging their government. Okay, that's what they want. That's the situation that they need in order to usher in globalism, which means, and I know people out there, I'm going to give people a little tip of advice here. If the global economic collapse happened tomorrow, World War III broke out, then global economic collapse followed, then all of a sudden you lose your house after a few months, you can't take your guns with you. You're not going to take your guns with you when there's no food to feed your kids and stuff. Most people will be like, oh, well, I will. Okay, great. I want everybody out there, if you have the ability, if you have $1,200, if you have $1,500, go buy an acre of land in the country. Have a rural route on how to get there and have the ability to go to that land within a 300-mile radius of your house, because that's about the capacity of one fuel tank of a vehicle. Okay? Buy an acre of land. $1,200, it's yours. Pay up your taxes for the year. They're not going to bother you for at least a year, and you'll have a place to go if shit hits the proverbial fan. Taxes on that land are going to be no more than $100 a year. If they skyrocket them up to a mortgage, well, then we'll come to that juncture when we come to that juncture. But in the meantime, you're going to have a place that's safe, that's in the country, and you can get away from the cities. And there also, if it's in the country, it's an acre of land, and the world's collapsing, you can hunt there. Squirrels, rabbits, deer, whatever you want, okay? I want people to start looking at that perspective as if you want to save America, buy America. Not only buy American products, but buy the land. Because if you don't, China will. Bill Gates will. The globalists will. So buy an acre of land. It's so critically important to a prepping plan. If there's one thing that you do, or two things that you do, buy a gun and buy some land, okay? Now, in the context of what you're saying, Alpha, we don't know specifically what they're going to do. But I can tell you with 100% assurity, they're going to do something. How do we know? July 14th, 2024, they attempted an assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life with a patsy and some other shooters in there. They had Secret Service stood down from a Jill Biden event that they had to go out there. They replaced them with DHS, who had no clue what the hell was going on. It was not at any of the briefs, and they missed their shot. I want everybody to realize, prior to that shot being triggered off, they knew full and well the consequences of that event. They had a plan A. If Trump gets assassinated, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to do. And they had a plan B. If we miss, this is what we're going to do. Understand that these people, yep, they're sick, they're globalists, they're smart, they're strategic. They've been doing the same damn agenda for 1,000 fucking years. They know what they're doing. Okay, they have a plan, and they are masters at psychological and kinetic warfare. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to show you that something is going to happen. We don't know what it is. But on the other side, the only reason that we've gotten this far and we haven't fallen into globalism, the only reason that we are here talking about this today on X and Rumble is because of Donald Trump and a foundation of other people, patriots to this country, who saw the opportunity. Right now, the reason they are prepping their ammunition and they're trying to take out Donald Trump is because they know something big is about to drop. If we look at what's going on, there's really no way to stop the global order from doing what they're doing. But what you can do is you can minimize their effect on the global population. In other words, getting the global population to see the illusion, to see the psychological warfare, to see the manipulation, to see how they are actually the enemy. And that comes about through unveiling of truth. Now, Dan Scavino on September 27th posted, "Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil," Ephesians 6:11. Yes, that is directly from a Q post. Just the other day on the feast of St. Michael, Donald Trump went out there and he posted a post on X, and then he posted it on Twitter. That post was I almost said him and Zelensky. That post was the prayer of Archangel Michael. And so this was, "Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our defense against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him. We humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all of the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking to ruin of souls. Amen." Now that comes directly from a board post, Q post, not 832. I was looking for, I got to go out of this one. I'm looking at my references. That comes directly from a board post. That board post is 109 for those who don't know that. Okay. Almost verbatim, exactly what Trump posted. Now, he posted that on 12:31 p.m. on True Social. 12:31 on True Social, 12:31 on the Q boards is, "What will next week hold? Moab, mother of all bombs." Okay, well, that's interesting. Well, a few hours later, he posted it on X. Now, this is where I get deep into the Q boards and the decoding, because this is what I did for a living for a long time. All right, he posted it on X. He posted at 8:32 p.m. What you see is 2%. The war is real. These people are sick. Watch the news next week. Another reference to next week with two different timestamps with the Archangel Michael in mind, evil, sickness, devil, so forth. What were Scavino and Trump trying to tell us? That something big is coming. Now, what would bring that about? We know Donald Trump has the red folder, the Crossfire Hurricane binder. He has information that he's declassified, that he kept with him, that they reclassified under national security after he was kicked out of office. But here's the thing. I said this on my show. I'm going to say it again on yours, Alpha. Is Donald Trump just can't release the Crossfire Hurricane binder and say, "Here, they spied on my campaign. They spied on innocent people. It was all a hoax," because the majority of Democrats still don't believe it was a hoax. But then this goes back to laying the foundation for why that all happened. You have to show people the entirety of the truth. Donald Trump's second impeachment came about because of a perfect phone call with President Zelensky. If you remember the phone call, Trump said, "Do you have the server?" "Yes, Mr. President." You know, Burisma, CrowdStrike. "I'd like to have my DOJ take a look at it." This is why they impeached him that second time. What server are they talking about? They're talking about the CrowdStrike server funded by the DNC that was at Burisma in eastern Ukraine. Yep, the same company that Devin Archer and Hunter Biden were on the board of directors on, that was in place on election night 2016. Why? Because it had close geographical proximity to Russia and was spoofing Russian IP addresses and was running hammer and scorecard to steal the election for Hillary Clinton. On that night at approximately 9 p.m., that server was shut down by Russian hackers. Shut off, which allowed Donald Trump to legally, lawfully win the election without Hillary Clinton being able to cheat. All the information is still on that server. Apparently, from what we got, is it was immediately encrypted after Russian hackers hacked it and shut it down. They encrypted it. So nobody could find out what was on there unless you had the encryption keys. Helsinki 2019, Donald Trump is given a soccer ball by Vladimir Putin inside the encryption keys. Okay, so Trump now has that server. Releasing that information brings about the context for everything else in the Crossfire Hurricane binder, showing conclusively, because if we're just looking at the Crossfire Hurricane binder, what this is just, it's weaponization of Barack Obama and all these guys going after Donald Trump because they didn't want him as president. When you show the 2016 server in there, this is treason. This is sedition. These charges go higher on that platform now because of all of the evidence that will be presented forth. Then I want to bring about this, Alpha. This is something that's not talked about. It was a theory, not even a theory. It was something that I had in my mind for a long time, waiting for this event to come about. And it was something that I talked about a lot during the beginning of the Joe Biden administration and towards the end of the Trump administration. It has a lot to do with Q. And I'll say that because one of the people that was the head of the Armed Forces Services Committee, head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, this man had been in Congress or been in Senate for over 30 years. He was deeply ingrained into our U.S. military. He was the man that helped the military investigate various different nuclear incidences that happened in 2007, 2008. If people are familiar with my multi-domain battlefield that I published and the Q to Storm video that's on my Rumble channel, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This guy was Jeff Sessions. If you go to the Q post, it talks about how Admiral R logged a conversation between Clinton and Lynch on the tarmac in Arizona. And he utilized that as leverage against Comey to reopen the Hillary Clinton email investigation 3 days before the 2016 election. Okay, that's in the Q boards. What's not told is how that information got to some unknown reporter at Fox News affiliate in Arizona for him to get down to the tarmac to basically disclose Bill Clinton was meeting with Loretta Lynch, who he's not supposed to be because his wife was running for presidency, and that's a massive violation of campaign laws. That reporter was a guy by the name of Christopher Sine. Christopher Sine wrote a book called Memoirs. In the book, he says, I was tipped off by a good friend of mine who's high up in the intelligence apparatus in Washington, D.C. that goes by the code name S. Well, just so happens Christopher Sine was a former D1 football player at the University of Alabama, the same alma mater as Jeff Sessions, as well as in the same fraternity as Jeff Sessions, whose last name is Sessions with an S. So Christopher Sine, by the way, June 2021, after Biden came into the White House, Christopher Sine hung himself from a doorknob with a dog leash. We all know that that is the CIA and Hillary Clinton's MO. So he is now dead. But understand that it was Christopher Sine who was tipped off by a guy that was Jeff Sessions. It was Jeff Sessions who recruited Donald Trump. But remember what happened? He resigned from Attorney General. And then all of a sudden, him and Donald Trump are in a feud. Well, that's kind of odd, isn't it? And then he runs for Senate again against Tommy Tuberfield, and Trump endorses Tuberfield. Interesting. So what happens after that? After February 2021, you don't hear another word about Jeff Sessions. He has completely disappeared from the face of the earth. 2020, no endorsements. 2022, no endorsements. Jeff Sessions has completely disappeared. I'm looking for a post that I have on my X account, and I want to bring some context into this because it starts to make a lot more sense why I just brought up Jeff Sessions. See, there is a Q board post, and by the way, the future does prove the past 100%. And we have to understand that John Durham wasn't the only special prosecutor that was appointed under the Trump administration. Does people understand this? There's a Q post right here. I'm going to bring it up. Durham takeover, here select parts. What if there's another prosecutor outside of DC as assigned by Sessions with the same mandate and authority? This is other than Durham. We've only heard of Durham. We've only had a Durham report. So I lay out right here. So over the last few weeks and months, we have seen the deep state operatives be arrested and removed. Diddy, Governor Hochul's former chief of staff, the Mayor Adams. We have to agree these scenarios do not look good for the Democrats, especially right before an election. Why would the Attorney General Garland approve these indictments right before an election? It makes no sense. What if he's not in the loop? What if the bad blood between Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump was just a ruse, similar to the Trump-DeSantis ruse, which I called out? Trump and DeSantis weren't feuding. That was bullshit. What was actually happening is they were weeding out the rhinos and other non-loyalists to Donald Trump, and then right afterwards, DeSantis endorses Trump and they're buddy-buddy again. The same thing was going on with Jeff Sessions. It was all a ruse. What if Sessions appointed a special prosecutor outside D.C. as Q states here? Could outside D.C., what is meant by outside D.C.? Could outside D.C. mean outside of federal authority and oversight? Meaning within the Special Trial Counsel Office of the Department of Defense. What if Jeff Sessions appointed a special prosecutor to uncover the deep state, hide the funding in special access programs, gave blanket authority to collect evidence through the U.S. Army JAG courts, which are the only other court other than the FISA court to be able to issue FISA warrants? What if Jeff Sessions was a special prosecutor and that is why he left the limelight? What if they allowed the deep state to steal the 2020 election, then once all the pieces were in place, they used FISA power through the investigation to begin collecting evidence to take them all down, identifying various key players that open up like rabbit holes of evidence like Diddy, Epstein, Maxwell. Over the past year, it's almost like Congress is being fed certain information at the right time to begin the investigations. Who is giving it to them? Here's the big kicker for those in the executive order world. Trump's EOs would still be in effect under this special prosecutor. So how would Trump and Sessions have the ability to create a special access program to investigate the deep state? The answer, Lieutenant General Raising Dan Cain. Trump has mentioned Raising Dan Cain multiple different times at his rallies. If you don't remember, he was a two-star general who ran Special Operations Command in Afghanistan and Syria and eliminated the ISIS caliphate within less than 6 months. Afterwards, Trump appointed him, 2019 to September 2021, the Director of Special Access Programs and Special Access Programs and Special Programs Director at the Pentagon. What does that mean? Is that Major General Dan Cain was the senior DoD official in charge of all funding and approval requirements for special access programs in the U.S. federal government, which means he would have full access to have summary overview of every single special access program, and anyone that was created had to go through him for funding requirements. Also gives rise to how Donald Trump was read into the special access programs dealing with UAPs, aliens, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, whatever we want to talk about there. Afterwards, he by the way, he's currently in the military, Director of Military Affairs at the Central Intelligence Agency. How do you make sure they don't find it at the CIA and uncover this stuff? Well, you're the head guy at the CIA liaison to the DoD. So what better way to get special funding routed through and have no oversight? Place the man who started special access programs as the Director of Military Affairs at the CIA. By the way, Lieutenant General Dan Cain was one of the 2 pilots who were flying F-16s over Washington, D.C. on September 11th, 2001. He was given weapons-free authority by General Worley at the time. General Worley died in 2009 in the D.C. Metro train crash, but he also testified in the 9/11 Commission, which was classified. So this man knows what really happened and flew into the Pentagon on September 11th. So what do we have here? We have a scenario that takes down the deep state in one fell swoop.
This is why they want access to all those PEDs.
And so here's the thing with PEDs. So this could be classified in a PED right now. But the moment, so I want people to understand this about PEDs, because I think this is one, you're in the military, I was in the military, I worked in Washington, D.C. I dealt with a lot of FEMA, a COOP and COG. I was FEMA Regional Director certified while I was in the Navy for my command. PEDs are classified until they are authorized. So once a PED is authorized, president puts a signature on it, it's now public and it can go to Congress for review. I want people to understand that, because if president authorizes a PED, it doesn't stay classified. That's one thing to understand. Okay. So there could be PEDs, updated PED directions that state that in the advent of this happens and this, and this, in the advent of this happens and this, and this. Okay. That I think will play out later on. Those will come to fruition. As of right now, everything could have been done outside of all this, but directly within the authority of the special prosecutor's office under the authority of the Department of Defense.
That's a hell of a trump card, bro.
It is.
That's a hell of a trump card.
But it's the only way that you take out the deep state and the global cabal, one fell swoop, and you win over all of the minds and the hearts of America. Like any other scenario you look at. If he came out and is like, oh, yeah, they stole the 2020 election from me, nobody gives a shit. Nobody's going to care. It's going to go on like normal.
We've done this dance already. We're not going to agree. We're not going to believe you. It's the same thing. I agree with you on that.
It has to be something this big.
It has to shock the conscience, and it has to really be the first arrest that shocks the world. That's man, you got my gears turning right now. No, because man, you satisfy almost every demographic on that being like, okay, we can roll with this. Like that's pretty damn brilliant, man.
Well, also, if you think about, we have it all. If we look at how they collected the data off of the deep state from 2007 to 2016, it's not admissible in court. It was done through the NSA's illegal spying campaign. They can't use that evidence in court, so they'd have to collect it legally.
And the reason it makes sense to me, because the one thing, and people kind of gotten frustrated with me, well, then why won't this stop it from happening in 2020? I always tell people, an attempted crime doesn't have the same magnitude and doesn't give you the same power on law enforcement as a completed crime. And so when you allow them to steal the election, following through with what they're doing, what your ability to handle that is just exponentially amplified to exactly what you just described right now. So it's just like, I'm telling you,
Jeff Sessions.
Where the hell? How does a man like that just doesn't disappear, Josh?
Nope, but he did.
You know, he's gonna get promoted in this private company or that company, or he's gonna run for here or run for that, or he's gonna write a book. You know, he's gonna come out and do an endorsement for one side or the other. This dude's just ghosted us.
Yeah. Now think about Congress over the last few years, how they seemingly get this level of information at the last minute. And they're like, hey, we got this information, Hunter Biden, or we got the Judge Merchant's daughter. Remember Jim Jordan, the day that Judge Merchant delayed the sentencing of Donald Trump, Jordan comes out and says, oh, we're investigating Judge Merchant's daughter for taking campaign funds from Harris Waltz.
Listen.
Right? And then all of a sudden, a few days later, it's gone.
But not just at the official level, even at the anon and podcasting level. How the hell are we beating mainstream media? And it's these back channels. There's these crumbs that are just enough crumbs are given that we're able to figure. Dude, we're figuring out information within 12 to 18 hours right now. Like it's that fast.
Well, we own the domain of information. If you think about the infrastructure that we have, social, cultural, political, institutional, academic, supply chain infrastructure, then global nations, what is one domain that dominates all of them? Information. We control the information domain. That's what the whole Q thing was about. That's what 2016 to 2020 was about. It was about taking back exactly what General Flynn said, taking back the idea of information.
Well, then we'll land it on this. One, you saw, we covered a lot of ugliness, you guys, but I want to reiterate, how do you prevent the bad guys from being able to leverage things against you? Have already the stuff that they want to leverage against you. If you haven't done so already, guys, because I'm telling you, these store shelves, if things don't change with this strike in the next couple of days, we are going to see the ripple effect of that very fast. I talked to some shoremen the last 48 hours, and I'm talking ones that are tied into these guys that are up in these union members, or I'm sorry, these union leaders. And I said, hey, man, if they make the call out to the West Coast guys, how fast can they enact a strike on the West Coast? Would there be, is it something we see a delay, couple days? They told me, Alpha, if the West Coast guys get the call from the East Coast guys, they can have that strike done the same damn day.
Yep.
That's crazy. And just understand, you guys have kind of seen how everything's unfolding, all these different opinions, all these different theories, but just nonetheless, if you haven't done so, you guys, go to the store and at least buy whatever you can afford, a week's worth of food, 2 weeks worth of food, whatever you can, just have it. Because as long as you have it, nobody can leverage it against you. And then, of course, make sure you have your freedom seeds and your freedom seed launchers to protect all that stuff. Let's land it here, Josh. October surprise, brother. You
just heard it.
You called it from October 1st to October 3rd. You just kind of told us, with these posts and what Trump's putting out there. Typically, when a warrior starts praying, it's because he knows he's about to go into the ugly battle. Next week is also October 7th. What are you thinking we see?
I think that we could potentially see Israelis retaliatory strike against Iran next week on the 7th. That would make more sense. Although tomorrow is the annular solar eclipse, so we could potentially see it tomorrow. Tomorrow. It's already October 2nd in Israel. But if we don't see it in the next 20, I said earlier, if we don't see it in the next 24 hours, it's going to be on the 7th.
There you guys have it. Josh, Real Joshua Reed on X, redpills.tv. Links are down in the description already. Man, it never fails, bro. You're absolutely brilliant. And you hit me with that Jeff Sessions one, man. I'm gonna be up all damn night having for new scenarios and all this stuff, which I love. I love the fact that you make me rethink some scenarios and rethink some things that I have. You guys, make sure you go support this man. Go support his team. Listen, he's been calling it. I've been calling it. That's all we got. Any last words, Josh?
Get ready, people. Buckle up. Kansas is about to go bye-bye. We're heading into the thick of it. Welcome to the firestorm. So hopefully after this, we'll have our country back. But Alpha, much love, respect to the audience. Much love, respect.
There we have you guys. You'll catch me in a space right here in about 30 minutes on X. Go follow it. Do some more talking on this. If you guys got some questions, hit me up. With that, you guys, Semper Fi, God bless. Support the people that support this show. And with that, I'll catch you guys tomorrow night. Operation Gladio live with the Colonel at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. God bless everybody.